Hey class, so we're going to start something new today. We're going to talk about the levels of organization as far as life is concerned on this planet. Okay, so there are several different levels, and we're going to start at the atomic level. All right, so atoms right here. So the one right here is hydrogen. Now you may be wondering, where do you find these? So we can find them on the periodic table of elements. So these are all the elements known to man on this earth. So these are all the elements, and they're all grouped together. The metals, okay, are all right here in this area. These are the metals there, and then there's the gases, which are over here in this part over here. Okay, so all these are the gases. And so these are all the known chemicals that we have here on Earth, all right? And so these are all the elements, okay, right here. If you ever take chemistry, you're going to study those for sure, all right? So let us move on, and let's continue. So we're going to go to biomolecules. So that's two or more atoms bonded together. Okay, so right here, what is this? This is water, H2O, all right? Then after that, and these are all in order by size, okay? So after that, we have organelles, okay? So an organelle is essentially a tiny organ. That's what it's called, an organelle. And the organelles are found in all the cells in our body, okay? And they're tiny structures that perform specific functions within the cell. Okay, and all these things help for life to happen. Okay, and then there is the cell, right? So inside the cell, I don't know if you can see it there. Inside the cell are all the organelles. Okay, so that's the smallest unit of life. Okay, and that's the cell. Then we have the tissues, and these are specialized cells that work together for a specific function. An example is take a cardiac tissue. Okay, it's muscle. The heart is a muscle, and so it is made mostly of cardiac tissue. All right, and then we have the organ. Okay, so here we have some lungs, and the organ is a group of tissues that work together. Okay, also to function to help support life. All right, then we have an organ system. An organ system is a group of organs that have a specific function. Okay, so here we see all these organs. So basically, we have the respiratory system, the skeletal system, nervous system, all these systems in our body. And yeah, it's amazing how wonderful our bodies are, especially with everything you consider, with all the cells that we're made of. It's just amazing. Okay, and then we have the organism. Okay, so you and I are organisms. Okay, so we're individuals that can adapt, we can reproduce, grow, such as a plant, a bacteria, and even animals. Okay, so those are organisms. Now we have a population, which is two or more organisms of the same species. Okay, so that's that. And then we have a community. So we have several different populations that coexist in the same area. So let's say you go out to a coral reef or you go out to a rainforest, you're going to find a lot of different species of animals coexisting in the same area. So that's a community. Then you have the ecosystem. The ecosystem. All right. So this is basically the living and non-living organisms in an area. So living, bio, non-living, abio. Okay. So non-living. Non-living is what? The water, the dirt, the rocks. Although there are living things in them, they are not themselves living things, right? Okay, even air. So a biome is a group of ecosystems that share a common climate. All right, so we have the tundra, we have the rainforest, Sahara, savanna, so grassland. So all these areas are biomes. Okay, so later we're going to go into more specifics as far as those are concerned. And then we have the biosphere. So that's the Earth, right? Everything coexisting in one place, all right? Good old planet Earth. That's why we need to take care of it. All right, so we're going to move on to a little PowerPoint here. So these are the levels of organization, okay? So what is the purpose of organizing books in a library, okay? There's always an organization, okay, when you think of it. Okay, so in nature, there's a balance, right? So I want you to think about that, okay? And I'm going to ask you what you think it is, okay? So natural organization. So way back a long time ago, right, in the old civilizations, okay, the Egyptians, right, they had their hierarchy. That's what they call it. So we have, the slaves, the bottom of the barrel, unfortunately. Then you have the craftsmen, scribes, soldiers, priests, all the way up to the main man or woman sometimes, okay? The king, pharaoh over here, and then the Mayan ruler over here. So there's always an order, okay, and a lot of different things, okay? There's a social, religion, school, military. So everything, right, starts down at the bottom of the barrel. So here I am right here, unfortunately, the bottom of the barrel, all right? Then there's you go all the way up to the school board, okay? So in life, there's also an organization. There's a hierarchy, right? You have the bottom person, and then you have the person that's up on top that calls the shots, right? So in science, okay, the levels of organization. So the definition is a hierarchical system to arrange structures of organisms. Okay, so the levels of organization. So we're going to study more in depth the micro levels. Okay, so these are mostly like inside us or living things. Okay, so the very smallest one is the atom. Okay, I mentioned this before. Then we go to the biomolecules. That's 2 or more atoms, right, that combine. Then we have the cells, and then we have the tissues. Okay, so this is a group of cells, and then the group of tissues is an organ, a group of organs, organ system, and then we have the organism, right? That's what we are. Okay, so don't worry, these slides I am going to make available to you so you can refer back to them. So atoms, the smallest unit of matter, and there it is, a periodic table of elements. So all these atoms have electrons floating around them, okay, as well as in the middle, the nucleus, right? We have nucleus also in our cells, okay, and the nucleus is basically the control center, right? Basically, it gives the commands of what everything's going to do. So like I said, biomolecules are 2 or more atoms bonded together that contain carbon. So we, as humans, are carbon-based life forms. Why? Because we contain a lot of carbon in our bodies. We're mostly made of that. And so these are just the chemical structures. Whoops, sorry. So these are the chemical structures right here. There's a carbohydrate. Carbohydrates basically break down into sugars, right? Lipids, unfortunately, fats, proteins. Okay, we have a lot of these in our muscles, of course, and nucleic acids. Okay. So the organelles, these are the tiny structures within the cell that help life happen. Okay. So like I said, an organelle is a tiny organ. Okay. So much like the organs in our body. And so within the cells, we have what are the smallest units of life. And the prokaryotes do not have a true nucleus. Remember that. Although they do have genetic material within the cell. And then over here we have an animal cell which does have a nucleus. Okay, so the difference here is the nucleus and formed organelles. The only thing that the bacteria might have is a cell wall and some ribosomes. Okay, so that's pretty much the only same things they do have. But the cell has everything else, right, to help make life happen within our bodies. All right, let's move on. So then we have tissues. So there's different types of tissues in our body, and they're all specialized to perform specific functions. Okay, so connective tissues in our skin. Remember, they're stretchy. Okay, so in case something happens, you get hit, hey, it'll stretch, and you might bruise. Okay, and then we have muscle tissue, nervous tissue. We have a lot of that in our brain, obviously, and one that's not there is cardiac muscle. Okay, so cardiac muscle contains a lot of mitochondria. Mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, so basically what that means is that it provides power, energy. So and that's a good thing. We have a lot of that in our heart because our heart needs a lot of energy because it pumps nonstop since the day it was formed in our mother's womb. All right, then we have the organ, which is a group of tissues that work together. And yes, plants do have organs. The leaves are an organ, the stem is an organ, the flower is an organ, and even the roots. Okay, and we're going to go more into depth later about the anatomy of plants. And then over here, you see this right here. I think this is a rat or some kind of rodent, I think. Well, and so we can see the organs right here. All right, these are the intestine. Over here, I think we have like the liver, pancreas, and whatnot. Kind of gross, but someday when you go to college, you're going to actually do this also. I did it. So if I can do it, you can do it too. Then we have the organ system. We have a bunch of systems, like I mentioned before. All right, a group of organs that work together, and all of these work together to sustain us so we can function normally from day to day and even while we sleep. Okay, so there's the digestive system, right? Everyone knows that one. The muscular system, integumentary, which is the skin. Then the lymphatic system, endocrine is the hormonals. Okay, nervous system, obviously, we sense, right? Someone pinches you, ow, or you get pricked by a nail or something. Okay, that's the nervous system, so it sends a signal to the brain, right, to help us feel. And then our bones, reproductives, respiratory, urinary, and then the circulatory, which is really important. And then we have the organism, right? You and I are organisms, as well as fish, as well as the birds and the bees and everything else, right? That is a single unit of life that has all cells, right? That are organisms. All right, so population, all right? 2 or more organisms of the same species, okay? So flamingos, population, baby turtles, population, and moose, population. But now, what happens if we have a bunch of different types of populations in one area? What do we call that? Community. Okay, so we have a lot of populations coexisting in the same area. Okay, then we have the ecosystem. So I love the coral reef ecosystem. I love going to dive there. I think maybe I'll share a video with you later. So the ecosystem is the living and non-living organisms in an area. So remember, living means bio, non-living means abio. Okay, so non-living, like I said before, rocks, dirt, water, air, stuff like that. Okay, that don't necessarily have cells. And then we have the biomes. So on Earth, we have a bunch of biomes. Okay, there's the tundra. Okay, there's taiga. We have rainforest over here. We even have that over here in Africa. And then there's the desert systems, really big one over here in Africa and even in Australia. Okay, we have tropical. There's many, many more. Okay, we'll get into detail later. And then the biosphere, right? The planet Earth where we live, the place where we need to take care of. All right, and just some things to remember. All right, so 1, we organize all living things from simplest to the most complex, right? So the simplest is what? The atom, all the way to the biosphere. So there's so many different levels just in life, okay? And then the micro levels of organization refer to the levels within an organism, okay? And then there's the macro. Macro means large. Micro, little, macro, large. So those levels of organization refer to the larger levels of organisms, all right? So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you listened to this presentation. I will be putting this PowerPoint along with our assignments. And we do have just one assignment to do today, and that's it. You can work with a partner somehow, some way, FaceTime, Skype, whatever, okay? But you can't work with someone else. If we were in the classroom, I would put you in groups, but obviously we can't do that yet. One day we will, I promise, I hope. I don't make any promises yet. But anyways, any questions, you know the drill, talk into the mic or type into the chat, all right? So let's get started.